Hello and welcome back to the Across the Pod NFL podcast for our next team season preview, which is going to be the Houston Texans. I am, as ever, your host, Annie Davis. With me, I've got a returning guest, our resident Texans fan. With us today is Graham Henderson, otherwise known as the Kilted Texan. Graham, how are you?
I'm doing fine. How's you?
I'm all good. Can't complain.
Nice.
Currently Saturday morning, so I'm currently halfway through watching our Dolphins preseason game last night. Looking forward to tomorrow's games, particularly. Well, I know we will watch preseason games, but with a Welshman playing potentially a lot in the game for the Chiefs tonight, I've got to watch their game against the Jaguars. So I'm looking forward to that very much so because, it's always good seeing a Welshman. Well, the only Welshman I think of in history to play in the NFL. So I'm very much looking forward to that. Before we carry on, actually, for those who are listening to it rather than watching, if you are watching on YouTube, you can see it. But if you're listening, Graham, you're wearing a hat with someone's signature. Now, I'm trying to work out whose signature is that?
It's the great Hall of Famer Andre Johnson's signature on the hat.
Nice.
But this is just stitched into this. This is a limited release hat that I'm going to pick up. So, yeah, they're all stitched in. So these were flying like hotcakes the other day. So I had to get myself one.
I bet. And, of course, we mentioned preseason games. You yourself were actually at a preseason game just a few days ago. It was last Thursday at the Hall of Fame game in Canton. How was that experience?
Different. Very different being at that kind of game. Hall of Fame games there's a lot of fanfare around them just for the occasion, before kickoff. They have all the potential, or the enshrinees, I should say. They walk across the field. They're all announced to the crowd. It's a very mixed bag of crowd because there's people there from all the teams you want to see, just people going at the Hall of Fame. So doesn't have quite the same atmosphere as your normal games would have, but for the kind of stadium it was, being like Tom Benson Stadium's pretty much a high school stadium. It's a pretty nice stadium, and just a great experience. Just apart from the weather, maybe cutting it short in the third quarter. But it was brilliant, awesome.
Yeah, I think it goes to show as well the fact that the game was postponed, because I remember we played the Titans week 1. I believe it was a 2018 season, where it was the longest game in history because of really bad weather, but they still managed to finish the game. I do think that because of preseason, maybe they just thought, you know what, we've played 3 quarters, all the guys have got the chance to play some snaps. No one really cares about the result. Let's just end it here. I think that definitely had a part to play.
Yeah, huge part, because believe it or not, it was absolutely roasting. It was almost unbearable, the heat just before that storm rolled in, and they tried to get it back on, but from under the stands, you couldn't actually see the other side of the stadium through the rain. And they must have just thought, no point in causing any injuries. We've had our sample piece here. We've got some stuff on film. We can work with this. Texans certainly didn't have any starters kitted up. CJ, Nico, Stephen Diggs and all. Those guys weren't even kitted. So they'd gotten to see a sample size of probably the people they wanted to see. So the 2 teams must have just agreed to cancel it there.
And did you get a chance to go into the Hall of Fame and look around there?
Yeah, we managed to get around. Very cool experience. The bus room itself is unbelievable. Seeing all those greats in there, and to believe, if you can ever get the chance to go out, there is a hologram section in it that's got Joe Namath.
Yeah.
He does the speech, and to know that how many people have ever played the game and how many have made it into the Hall of Fame, it's quite a remarkable feat to get your name into the Hall of Fame. And obviously, because the Texans have their first guy in now, it's a huge thing. Obviously, I made a beeline just for that bust. So awesome experience. Really, really worth going to see if you ever are in that area of Ohio. Just give yourself a couple hours to go around it.
I did my 3 months in America. I went to all these games, but still one of the highlights of my whole trip around America was going to the Hall of Fame. Didn't go for a game in Cleveland, just went for that experience. And at that time, and I was there for about, I reckon, 4 or 5 hours. I could have been there longer. If it wasn't for having to get a bus to my next stop, I would have been there a lot longer. And I had such a good time there. And I would go again. Genuinely, I would go again. I would happily go again. When I've done all these stadiums, and I think I want to try and keep the record alive. So I think I saw talk the other day of a new Brown stadium. I think if that was the case, I'd happily go back to Cleveland, and I would probably make the journey back to Ohio, because even when I went there was stuff that I remember there was only a few weeks before I went there was that amazing catch from Justin Jefferson. Already in the Hall of Fame, there was his gloves, or the gloves or cleats from that game were there. So I feel like even in just a matter of weeks, they can add more stuff to it. And I feel like if I went there again in, say, 2028 or 2029, I feel like there'll be so much more there that I'd not seen before. And I thought it was one of the most, as a football fan, a guy who obviously loves the Dolphins, but also just loves the league in general, to see all of that was just, I thought, was one of my highlights of my trip. Really was a cool experience. And I think that anyone who, is want to go out to America for Browns game, or just go to the NFL in America, I think if you can get the chance to fly over to Canton and get to go to that, it's about $30, so it's not even that expensive either. It's one of the best things I did, and I think it's highly recommended for those who are into NFL history. But we will move on to modern day NFL history with the current state of the Texans. So ins and outs, didn't find many real main outs. The ones I found really were Adrian Amos, Devin Singletary, Blake Cashman, and Denzel Perryman. But the ins were very impressive. Daniil Hunter, Danico Autry, Folanuso Fatukasi, Jeff Okudah, CJ Henderson, Tommy Townsend, Joe Mixon, and then him and Stephon Diggs via trade, as well as getting in light of Cam Akers. And then the draft, you took in the second round, 42nd overall, Kamari Cassiter, as well as Blake Fisher, 59th overall, Caden Bullock, 78th overall, and 123rd overall, Cade Stover, just to name a few of your draft picks. Graham, overall, your thoughts on the off-season?
I think it's been one of those off-seasons where the Texans have taken what we did last year, and we're obviously looking to add key pieces to that. This is us, after seeing the sample of what we did last year, and how I would say impressive the Texans were last year. We probably had the conversation at the start of last season how nobody really gave the Texans much of a chance, just based on the back of last year, because nobody knew the impact CJ Stroud would have. So after seeing what we did last year and how impressive we were, it's almost like we've jumped another year or two ahead, and we've gone, right, let's add the pieces now to make a run. So I think with the pieces out, like your Grenards and your Blake Cashmans, who were high producers for the team, we've replaced some of those high producers with potentially even higher producers, and like say Daniil Hunter, people like that. Singletary, Motor last year, ideal, awesome for us at running back. Joe Mixon's now here. It's not as if we've had to sacrifice too much in that. And it seems to be to me that some of these free agents and some of these guys who are maybe looking for another team and a trade and that, they're actually wanting to come to the Texans now. They see what the Texans are building down there. And it's exciting as a fan. Obviously, you want to get, you get pulled up in the hype and everything, but it's great to see that your team's actually on the uptick again. And some of the draft picks we've added, like Lassiter and Blake Fisher, who was my favourite, Cade Stover. He's already in the two games that they've had, like last night against the Steelers and the game against the Bears. Stover was like one of those guys who was kind of like a security blanket. Obviously, he's fitting in with the team. You see some of the Texans media stuff, from training camp and all that, and all the players are already talking about him in a high respect. So yeah, it's exciting times for the Texans, and I think that we've probably strengthened more than weakened in this off season, and that's exciting to see for me.
Does the Stephon Diggs obviously probably the biggest in terms of the biggest name, but we've seen from his time with the Vikings as well as the Buffalo Bills, maybe not the best for locker room morale sometimes. I think there's a lot of talk about him and the fallout he had with Josh Allen and I think Cousins as well. With the team that's doing so well and that's such a lot, obviously got a special quarterback, CJ Stroud. Does that worry you in terms of, him being seen as that locker room cancer? Do you worry about him potentially upsetting the apple cart? And you saw about him getting happy about not getting the ball from Josh Allen last year, and there's so many good players to throw to for Stroud. You've got Nico Collins, Tank Dell, Dalton Schultz as well. And does that worry you in terms of if Stephon Diggs, he is getting older now, he is is regressing in terms of how he was maybe 3 or 4 years ago. Does that worry about any sort of morale and dressing room morale, him being there, potentially being that locker room cancer?
Like I've heard this term used for a lot, and like over the past week in Canton, talking to a lot of Texans fans, that come up quite a lot. The Diggs chat, and will Diggs be good or bad for the locker room? But personally, I think Diggs is a winner. This is why he becomes unhappy. Like last season, the Bills started to stutter. You know, they weren't the same Bills powerhouse from maybe 2 seasons ago. And I know a couple of Bills fans will maybe disagree with that, but they weren't. That the same happened for the Vikings, I think. When the team starts to dip off, I think that's when he becomes he gets a bit of unrest in him, maybe starts causing a bit of issues. So he's coming into this Texans team, and yeah, he's one of the older heads, but we've got a young unit here. And I think he sees, and I believe that him and CJ were messaging before the trade even happened, you know, like he obviously seen the potential down in Houston. He sees they've got a young wide receiving core. I don't think he's going to be that bothered if his numbers aren't that high. He just wants to win. And because you've got Diggs, Collins, Tank, Schultz, there's no way that there isn't going to be someone open. No way, you know. And you've got like Tank can stretch the field now. He did it last night against the Steelers when he got the first touchdown of the game last night. They're so tricky to mark, these guys. They're so difficult to match up against. I just think that as long as we're winning, Diggs will be okay. You know, you're not going to hear much out of him. I think he's joined us to make a run at it, and he sees us as one of those potential places where he's going to be really effective, and he might get that opportunity to make that run again. So yeah, I don't think he's going to be too bad at all. I think he'll be fine.
I do feel a little bit for you, but I think time will tell because, as you said before, I think when he wasn't really much of a distraction, it was when the Bills were making AFC Championship games and losing by 13 seconds to the Chiefs. And I think potentially if you start the game, I think you start the season 6-0 or 7-2 or 9-3 or something. I think as long as he's getting involved, I think he'll be happy. And I have to ask you as well, actually, of course, you bought in CJ Henderson. Your surname's Henderson. Are you buying a CJ Henderson jersey?
Well, we've got, is it 2 Hendersons we've got on the thing? We've got Ladarius Henderson down in the bottom of the draft as well. So I might have to have 2 numbers with Henderson on it. I think Ladarius Henderson was down in round 7 as well. When I seen us pick a Henderson, I was like, oh, Ken, that puts the H and H down having a Henderson there. So I used to be bad in the days before, like I fully like got in behind the Texans when I used to like buying jerseys from other teams. I used to buy a Henderson jersey from whoever a Henderson was playing for back in the day. So I had like a wide variety of Henderson jerseys that I started trading off to get Texans gear in. So it'd be nice to have proper Henderson jerseys instead of just like a Kilted Texan 82 or a Henderson 82 that's mine, because we all know Sims plays with 82. So yeah, it'd be nice. I probably will buy them just because I'm that much of a glutton for the buying Texans gear. So yeah, probably.
I mean, I just look now. He was 249th overall pick, guard out of Michigan. Obviously, they won the national championship, so he could be a bit of a sleeper pick at that position. And yeah, I mean, I would probably. I mean, we had Jesse Davis play for the Dolphins, but it was Davis without the E, so that killed that. I could have got it. I've got Anthony Davis NBA jersey, but yeah, I think if ever, and a Davis with an E came to the Dolphins, I think I would be probably the first in the queue, and maybe the only person to buy a jersey for that. If he's like some unknown, like undrafted tight end or something, I think I would probably still get it. But maybe I'll wait till he plays a bit. I don't know. But we mentioned Stroud before. Of course, he came on last time post the wild card round win against Browns, pre the Ravens defeat. But obviously, he had an amazing rookie year, won Offensive Rookie of the Year as well. Obviously, you watch him even more than the regular NFL fan does. Just how special is he?
He's unbelievable. his poise in the pocket for being like last year being a rookie QB and being from Ohio State, because I don't believe the league has had a very good run of Ohio State quarterbacks like transitioning to the NFL. So he put a lot of critics to bed with how he performed last year, and he still seems to be performing at that high level. You see him in training camp. He's got a great rapport with his wide receiving core. He last night I actually didn't expect to see him have as many snaps as he did last night. He just looks like he's starting off the same way. Once he gets his proper offensive line sorted again, because here we are talking about the Texans' offensive line. Once he gets Howard and Tunzel bookend in that offensive line, I think we'll see even more from him. So yeah, he's a special human being in this game, and I think there's very rarely a pundit who doesn't say that. The Texans have absolutely lucked out, and thank you to the Browns again for allowing us to pick him up with the trade values. We got out of Deshaun Watson, so yeah, we're still living on that. Unlucky for them, but hey, it's football.
Yeah, I mean, you could have easily, Deshaun Watson was, when he was playing for you guys, he was a passing yard leader in his final year, 2020, and he was so fun to watch. And I remember him playing in London, and that is still, for me personally, I've been to 9 international series games in London, and that is, I think, easily the best performance I've seen by any player, certainly quarterback position, at any London game. He was unbelievable against the Jaguars, and he was top 5 for me personally in the NFL at that point. And obviously, he did sort of, for many reasons, sort of leave you guys a bit in the lurch, whether it's requesting a trade and all the stuff that went on in the off season. You thankfully still got a good value for him in terms of got the multiple draft picks on. Could have easily been a couple of seconds or third with all his off the field stuff. And he had a year obviously without any good quarterback. Davis Mills was there, and he wasn't awful, wasn't great. But then obviously the whole thing about the whole winning that game on the final day, Lovie Smith, and they're saying, they've given it a chance for number 1 overall pick. They've ruined their rebuild. They've ruined their tank, and then lo and behold, albeit only 1 year, but so far you've got a quarterback second. It's in Stroud, second overall pick, way better than the first overall pick in Bryce Young, and already looks to have. He's already, for me, done more in a playoff game than Dak has, than Tua has, than Kirk has. Well, maybe not Kirk. He had that game against the Saints, but there's a lot of quarterbacks who have done so well and been in the league for 5-6 years who have not had the performance he had against the Browns. Even in the when they're going to go and get stuff against the Colts in Week 18, that I think was the first or second player of the game for him, and he threw that touchdown pass from 50, 60-yard bomb. So for me, yeah, I think it's a reason why I put him in 5th place in my top 32 quarterbacks in the league, even after just 1 year, because he just looks to me, he's got the mentality, the composure, the winning culture, and the winning sort of ability that a quarterback needs. For me personally, I think he's a real deal, and I think you guys have picked up an absolute star. So I think it's a very exciting time to be a Texans fan.
Yeah, I feel sorry for Bryce Young as well, because it takes a lot of factors to have a good rookie season. Luckily for the Texans, we had the new head coach in with DeMeco Ryans. He's the guy that was a captain as a linebacker for the squad back when he played. And he's brought in this culture with him. And the franchise itself is going through a bit of a rebuild and a rebrand as well. If you look at how we've released the new kits, we've got the new logo out. There's a bit of a buzz around the place, and everyone seems to be buying in and stuff. And CJ's come in amidst of all that, and he's part of all this rebrand. It's exciting. We had key pieces for him to play with, and like Bryce Young on the other side probably didn't have any weapons to throw to, probably didn't have as good a offensive line to play behind. So I think for CJ, he landed in a good spot. He could have quite easily have went to the Panthers and had the same season Bryce did. I'm not saying Bryce would have had as good a season as CJ had, but there's the opportunity there for that to have happened. So I think he's probably lucky to have come in at the right time to the Texans. We did have a lot of issues, but they all seem to be getting ironed out, like the Easterby stuff and, all that kind of stuff. That's all in the past now. We're moving forward, and there seems to be a lot of hype around the place. Everyone seems to be buying in, and anything I hear coming out of the Texans seems to be that they are all in. They are all in. There's a new show started on YouTube, I think, Iron Sharpens Iron. So it might be worth people who don't know a lot about the Texans to maybe start watching that. Just to see a bit of it's almost like a Hard Knocksy style, but it's done by the Texans. So you'll get to see a bit behind the scenes and see just how much these guys are willing to play for each other. So yeah, it's exciting times to be a Texans fan.
You mentioned the jerseys there. What's your thoughts on them? Because I personally don't think they're that great. I think the ones you had before were better, in my opinion. Now, there's one of them, I think it's maybe your alternate. It's like one of them I think's okay, but I'm looking at the white one and the red one and the home jersey. And I'm not a fan. But for you, what's your take on the jerseys?
I think it's great that we've finally done something different. You know, we've had the same jersey combination for 22 years. For it to have a new jersey now, and like there was, I can't remember how many people are involved. I think there was like 10,000 people involved in like these like think tanks and questionnaires, and they brought in veteran players, they brought in current players. Everyone had a say in what was going on, and this is what's come out of it. And any of the players that you've spoke to in that, they think these new kits are fire. The veterans think they're fire. You know, like I like the tomato ketchup bottle. You know, that Battle Red day is going to go off because have you seen our new helmet for that day? It's like
I'm not actually. I'm going to find this now.
Oh, they had it in the Hall of Fame, so I got to see it in person. But it's like candy paint with like gold flake through it and stuff. It's honestly the new red helmet is wild, and it's got the horns on the side of it.
Oh, I can see it now. That's quite nice. I'm not gonna lie, that is quite nice.
So the guys are some of the little things is what the guys like the most. I like the new helmet with a H on it that we can wear. It's all like our Color Rush jersey with a slight bit of Houston blue in it. We want to keep some of our like nostalgia there. We're not going to go love you blue. You know, that's gone. So we took a bit of the H-Town blue. I just like it. I think it's great now because now we can have throwback jerseys.
We're
one of the only teams that didn't have a throwback. So now we've got that history. Now we've moved on to the next stage. We can have throwback games. Like in 10 years or something, we can throw in the old Battle Red or throw in the old Liberty White. But yeah, I like it. And I like the accents, like the horns coming out the shoulders. Some of the guys that I'm friends with, I think actually the horn idea on the shirt was one of their ideas, and they took that and they used it in the jersey. So the team's obviously listening to even the fans, you know. So I like them. I've got them all already. You know, I'm not going to lie.
Nice.
I'm awful. The only one I can't get yet is the alternate H-Town one, but we're working on it.
Racing stuff. You have to keep us updated whether you get it in the end. You have to let us know what happens with it.
Yeah, hopefully. I might have to reach out to the team eventually, but we'll see. We'll work on it.
So you may even be able to get it in the States. I mean, I'm sure you got some plans this year to go to America.
Yeah, November. Heading out in November. 3 game stretch. 2 home, 1 away, all in Texas. So that'll just give you an idea of where we're going away.
That'll be home against the Lions, away to the Cowboys, and home to the Titans.
Yes.
Oh, you've got the Houston derby, the Oilers against Texans derby.
The noisy neighbors.
Yeah. I have to ask as well because mentioned at the start of throughout this episode that no one thought you'd go where you did last year, and you were seen as underdog for a lot of the games. But do you think that's going to change in terms of now you're seen as one of the favourites to win the AFC? Does it change for you in terms of like for the team to go from being almost the hunting to the hunted? Does that make sense? Is that something that you feel it's a whole different mindset for teams? And I think we've seen a lot of teams who have these sort of years, and then the next year they got the expectation, like the Browns in 2019 when he got Odell Beckham and all that kind of stuff, had a great end to the year before, didn't quite work out for that. Is that a concern for you, or do you think that it's going to be absolutely fine?
It's a huge concern. Like it loads of things can happen. CJ can have the sophomore slump. You know, they got more. There's more tape on him. Guys are more prepared defenses who've seen him before, like your Colts, your Titans, Jags. You know, who play him twice a season. those guys are more prepared for them. You see them building in the draft to be more prepared for the Texans. This is how it works with the divisions. The Dolphins will be the same. Like when you see one of your competitors starting to move up, you start building to beat them. Just win out your division, and that's you already guaranteed a playoff spot. Even if you have like a losing record, which we've seen before, as long as you have number one spot, that's all that really matters. So there's a huge amount of pressure on the Texans. I think we have like the fourth hardest schedule or the fifth hardest schedule this year. Because of where we finished. We have a terrible schedule. That's going to play against us. But also in the discussions I've had when I was away last week, because there were so many Texans fans, it was just like Texans chatter all over the place. That's pretty much all I've been digesting all week, is if we can get through this schedule, as hard as it is, we shouldn't have to fear anyone in the later run, because we've been playing the better teams. So, like playing against the Ravens, it isn't as scary, or it shouldn't be as scary, because we're built more to beat them. Still all going to be very difficult, but it is nerve-wracking, but it's hard not to get caught up in the hype train that everyone's in. We're making the run for the Lombardi and that, but I'm going to keep my feet on the ground and just aim for that championship game. Just get that one more step. We've never been that far, and I just want to get over that hump. And then after that, we'll see what happens. What will be, will be.
Yeah, I'm looking at the schedule now, and it's, awfully, awfully tough. I mean, the teams I'm seeing you're playing, I genuinely think, I'm looking at the teams you're playing, genuinely maybe 75% of the teams you're playing, seen as playoff teams. It seems teams that are going to be at least competing for playoff spot, if not people think are going to make it. So, yeah, it's incredibly tough. And that is actually a great segue to our final segment, which is going to be our win-loss tie section. So, of course, those who aren't familiar, who are listening for the first time, each fan who comes on predicts their team's record by going through each game and answering with a win-loss tie prediction. So, Graham, of course, you were on last season and the year before that. The Texans finished 10-7 in 2023. Do you by chance remember what your prediction was back?
No, I think I had a winning record, and you laughed at me, I think.
Okay, have a look. So I'm looking at all the predictions from last year. So you had,
I think I did,
with 8-9. 8-9.
8-9, but I had a draw in there, didn't I?
No, I don't think. I think that was the year before. I think that was the year before because.
8-9. I should have turned it the other way around. Well, I put down more wins than people thought we were going to get. I think it was a heavy 4-win season that we had for last year from pretty much everyone. So,
well, amazingly, you were actually, according to all the teams combined, you were the 6th least optimistic fan record-wise going into the season. But I'm sure this year it's going to be you'll be maybe the 6th most optimistic fan with your record prediction.
Yeah. Maybe. We'll see.
Well, week 1 starts off with a bang. You've got an AFC South rivalry game on the road to the Indianapolis Colts. Graham, win, loss, or tie?
I think we're going to go into India. We're going to get a win. We're going to get a win off the back of our last win at the end of last season. So we're going to go back there because we're not afraid of the loud house.
So week 2, your first home game of the season, you take on the Chicago Bears.
That's going to be a win. Yeah, we would have won that game if rain hadn't come into effect.
Yeah, fair enough. So week 3, you're back on the road again, this time against the Minnesota Vikings.
Road game against the Vikes. I'm gonna keep the win streak going. I'm going 3-0 off the bat.
Well, for those watching on YouTube, I have to put out there that wasn't the Chicago Bears hat I just put on. It's the Chicago Cubs. They look very similar in terms of it's red rather than orange. But I don't want people thinking I've changed teams or I've gone down the 2-team approach. That was a Cubs hat. So just for everyone at ease who was watching and thinking, why is he putting on a Bears hat? It was Cubs. So
just making a Hall of Fame game again. That's all we were doing, trying to make that.
Yeah. Week 4 is at home to the Jacksonville Jaguars.
Jags, it's going to be 4-0. We'll beat the Jags at home. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you think about your schedule will be tough. I want to bring your attention to the Jags schedule, because their schedule is generally one of the hardest I've seen, apart from the Steelers, who've got a terrible sort of final 8 games, 9 games. So this is why I think Peterson could be maybe the first head coach to get fired. They've got Dolphins, Browns, Bills, Texans, Colts, Bears, Patriots, Packers, Eagles, Vikings, Lions, Texans, Titans, Jets, Raiders, Titans, Colts. So, I mean, actually, very similar to yours, to be fair. Very similar amount of teams. But yeah, the AFC South teams have really been shafted by a terrible sort of run of games.
Yeah. There's some tough schedules out there. But I think because the Jags were playing so well last year, like they kind of blew it on the last day of the year. Texans shouldn't have really been in the playoffs if it hadn't been for the Jags implosion against the Titans on the last day of the season. I was flying through the air when that result come. I was flying back down to Houston from Indy when that result come in. The plane was bouncing when it landed because everyone got the things that we were division champs when we come off the plane. But they totally imploded. Nobody expected them to lose that game, and they really shouldn't have.
So, I mean, think about the last couple of years in the AFC South. I mean, the year before that, the Titans they were leading the division by loads, and then the Jags came in. They, sneaked in last. They beat the Titans on the final game or second to last game, and then the following year, 8-3 start. At one point, they were the 1 seed in the AFC. Didn't make the playoffs at all. So, weird sort of 2 seasons for them. Really opposite sort of end of the spectrum. Week 5, you're at home again, and please win this game. You're at home to the Buffalo Bills.
Oh, that's going to be a bit of a grudge. You really want us to win it?
I do. I would love nothing more.
Yeah, I'm actually gonna put the Bills down for that one.
Okay. So
I can't keep saying win as much as I want to say win all the time.
Yeah, I think we had. I think in all our 4 years, we've had one unbeaten season prediction. I believe it was year 1 or year 2. I think it might be our second year doing these, or first year. It was our first year doing these, our second series. We had 3 Packers on the same episode. We had Adam Martin from Franchise Tag. We had Abby Grace and Ash in the NFL, and they went for a combined 17-0. So that was the ultimate optimism for what was in the end a very underwhelming season with Rodgers before he left. Week 6 is once again an AFC East team, this time on the road against the New England Patriots.
I think we'll beat the Pats. Yeah,
they're probably, or they're by far the easiest team on your schedule. Maybe them or the Titans, and I think they'll be generally in the top 2-3 worst teams. Certainly in the AFC, maybe even the whole NFL. I don't think they'll be that good. Week 7, you travel to Lambeau Field and take on the Green Bay Packers.
I think Green Bay will win that.
Okay, so week 8 is your second game against the Colts, but this time at home.
We'll do the double on the Colts. I think we're going to double everyone in our division this year.
Interesting. Okay, so week 9 is on the road to Aaron Rodgers and the New York Jets.
We're getting revenge on the Jets this year because we should have beat them last year. They were awful, but we were worse. The rain was bad. Will Rodgers even play? Have we seen the last of him this year again, or is he back from injury again? I don't know. We're going to beat the Jets.
So week 10, you're back at home, this time against the Detroit Lions.
Oh, man. That's going to be a good game. That's the one I'm at, so the better win.
Of course, yeah, that's the start of your 3-day
so trip. I usually see one loss, so I'm going to say that'll be our loss. My first game there will be the loss.
It's amazing how the NFL works, because if you told this is 2 very good teams, one made the NFC Championship game last year, one made the divisional round, and either team is probably, if you look at maybe the 6, 7 sort of favourites for the Super Bowl this year, I think you're both in it.
Yeah,
if you told me,
that's a precursor to the Super Bowl.
Oh, interesting. I mean, I love that one because it'd be one where neither team's won it before or even made it. So I think that's something I've always loved to see one day there, to be a Super Bowl, or even Champions League final where neither team's won it before. That's something I always live for. As a neutral, I think seeing a new team win it is always good. If you told me back in 2020 or 2021 that it'd be a Lions-Texans game, middle of the season, that would have a lot of meaning behind it, potentially people seeing it as potentially a Super Bowl sort of preview, you'd have laughed at me. So I think that's why we love the NFL. Every year, different teams can be good or bad. I've mentioned this quote many times before, but Bengals and Bills 10 years ago were maybe two of the worst teams in the AFC, and look at them now. They're both staples of the playoffs. They've both got two of the 3 or 4 best quarterbacks in the league. So that's why we love the NFL. La Liga, Barcelona win it all the time. Bundesliga, Bayern won it 10 of the last 11 years. PSG win every Liga and apart from one in the last 7-8 years. And whereas the NFL, I know the Chiefs have won it back to back and they could win it 3 times in a row. And I know the Patriots won it multiple times, but it took 20 years to be a back-to-back winner in the NFL. So for me, that's why we love it. Teams can be good one year, bad the next. It's the best part of the sport, in my opinion. That and the intro music to all their Fox and CBS, that always makes me excited for games. So week 11 is the second of 3 games you're going to on the road to the Dallas Cowboys at AT&T.
Texans win.
Have you been to that stadium before?
I've only done a tour.
How
in the middle of June.
That tour's amazing, though. Have you
unbelievable.
To catch a ball in the end zone amazing.
My favourite bit about it was I got to stand in the star with my Texans logo and just throw the H's up in the middle of the star. I was getting it tight off of all the people who worked there. Everyone was telling me and the lifts and all that to go to the shop and buy a better jersey. But it was all in good fun. But if you are in Dallas and you're looking for something to do and there's a tour on, it's not that expensive. Just go out and see it. It's unbelievable. The access.
So good. I mean, I love the fact that I can say that I've caught a touchdown pass on an NFL field, and I didn't get to do the field goals, but I love the fact that I've both thrown and caught a ball in the end zone. That for me is something I've never experienced at any of the stadium. I've been to stadium tours at Anfield, Old Trafford, Millennium Stadium. All these. I've done a few tours over the years, but I've never once ever got on the pitch. So to get on the field, throw some balls around there's no limit. You can go on there for 5 hours if you wanted to. There's no limit on how long you can be on the field for. Just thought it was an amazing thing. I'd been to a game the day before, and I was looking around thinking, I was here a day ago. 80,000, 90,000 people were there. I just thought it was incredible. And that is something I think was the best part of that stadium. I think to do that was unbelievable.
Yeah, it is. That sums it up perfectly. It is an unbelievable tour and experience. I've done like the NRG tour, and I've done it twice, and it's gotten better as it's gone on. The access has grown up, and you've got more. You do get into more areas, but it's nothing to the AT&T access. They've done a really good job with that.
Yeah, and the actual stadium themselves, for game day, you'll have a great time. There's not a bad seat in the house there. It's unbelievable. I'd probably reduce maybe the size of the Jumbotron a little bit. It's probably a bit too big, but overall, it's an amazing atmosphere, and I think you have a great time there. Week 12, the final of your 3 games in state is at home to the Tennessee Titans.
Yeah, that should be a win.
Okay, so moving on to week 13, you're on the road, but this time to the Jacksonville Jaguars.
The same again, win. I just think we're too much for our division this year. Although the Colts will be much improved, I think we're just too much for the division.
Yeah, I think the Colts, people are sleeping on them. People are sleeping on the Colts. I think they, in terms of dark horses, I think they're one of my picks. I think there's a few of the teams I'm going to be considering for the surprise team element of our season predictions episode later on in the off season. But yeah, I think the Colts definitely are being really slept on this off season. Yeah. But week 14 is a bye week, so week 15, and careful what your answer is for this one, is at home to the Miami Dolphins.
Hey, Andy, we'll put that one down as a tie this year.
Oh, I love that. I like that.
I don't want to upset you.
Very, very Switzerland of you. I like that a lot.
Thank you.
Well, your next game might be the hardest game on the schedule this year. On the road at Arrowhead to the Kansas City Chiefs.
Yeah, and we're getting late on in the season, so like the cold will start being a factor up there. So I think the Chiefs will beat us, but it'll be close. Yeah, but it's going to be a Chiefs win.
Hopefully, if you get a 20-point lead this time, you don't mess it up.
I know. That still haunts me. Still have sleepless nights about that.
No, I bet. I mean, you mentioned on another episode where It might be either my Liverpool podcast or another NFL podcast where I can't look back and watch Liverpool against Chelsea 2014. I can't look back at that final day of the season in 2022. And if I'm honest, I don't think I've not yet watched back the Titans game last season for us, because for years and years where the team's been rubbish, I've never been used to having like an actual really important game for playoff implications. And that game, I think, had a massive factor towards us not winning the division and ultimately causing our season to curtail like it did. So yeah, I get that completely. I remember watching that in a sports bar in Portugal, and I couldn't believe I knew all those points up. And I was rooting for the Texans a lot because I loved Hopkins, I loved Watson back then. And yeah, I really wanted you guys to win. Now I was gutted for you that you lost that game because I was really rooting for you guys to go on and win it. Week 17, your final home game of the regular season is against the current current reigning number one seed in the AFC. You take on the Baltimore Ravens.
I think we're going to beat the Ravens.
Love that. A revenge for the divisional round loss last season. Although, is it revenge in week 16, week 17? But yeah, certainly it'll be nice to get on back on them and beat them, and probably at that point show a little bit of a warning sign that if the Ravens are as good as they were last year and you beat them, a real sign of intent going into the playoffs. I think that would be
that's a tough double header.
It's massive. Yeah, it's really tough. That is horrendous.
And like if you're banged up at that point in the season, anything can happen. But yeah, that's a tough two teams to take on back to back. But that's almost preparing you for playoff football because everyone's going to be that hard going in. So that's the way we've got to look at it.
I think it was the Niners one because we did the Niners episode a few before this episode, and we talked about. I think it's them, the team that's got them back to back in weeks 10 and 11. I think they've got both on the road as well. On the road to the Ravens, on the road to the Chiefs, but I think it's the Niners. Some teams got it. We've already covered on these season previews. Yeah, that's not a great doubleheader there for either team. But week 18 is a bit more kinder to you. You're on the road to the Tennessee Titans.
Yeah, we'll get it. We'll finish off. We'll round out the season with a win in Tennessee.
So that means you're finishing the season with a 12-4-1 record. So that you would think. Will certainly get you into the playoffs. It might well win you the division. If you get to the playoffs, how far are you going in the postseason?
Well, like I said, I would love us to get to the championship game. I want us to win it all, but I think there's one more year. There's probably one more year before that step. Yeah, so championship game. Let's try and get to the championship game. But if we do make it all the way, it will be. I'm putting Lions Texans.
Interesting. And just another prediction there for you. You mentioned you get to the AHN Championship game. Obviously, by that you're saying you're going to lose that game. Who is it going to beat you? Just as a prediction for the rest of the league. Basically, who makes the Super Bowl?
No, it's probably going to be the Chiefs.
Yeah.
Again, in Arrowhead again.
No,
because they'll get all the help that they can from the Zebras. I'll throw that in there.
Yeah. Well, I don't know whether I didn't watch your game, but I watched our game, and they're trialing automatic, like sort of technology-based spotting of the ball. So
yeah, that was in the Hall of Fame game.
Was it? Okay, yeah. That's interesting.
It's almost like Hawkeye. It's almost like the tennis or whatever.
Yeah,
it knows where it needs to be placed, so there's not going to be any of these, the spots here
with the rope and the stretching out. I think that's such an outdated system. Apparently, it still remains because it wants to cause drama, but I think it would work so much better. I mean, we said that about VAR, and look what's happened with that. But as long as the people using it are using it rightly, I do feel like that because I think it's not really a subjective thing. It's like VAR's problem is that it's subjective, but with a bit like technology in football, the goal line, or Hawkeye in tennis, it's very much black or blue or black and white. It's very much it's either you've made the yards or you haven't. So I think it should hopefully work.
Well, the balls could be chipped, so they know exactly how far up the field the ball is gone. Because we have seen terrible spots over the years. Where a player's been down and then the ref will pick it up and move it a yard forward, and you're like, where's he getting that spot from? He was nowhere near that spot, and that's been the case of like maybe a potential fourth down play to a first down play. in these big games. So they have to come up with a way that is more like less flawed, less flawed. So hopefully this will help that. And the new kickoffs have been quite fun. They've been fun to watch. So we'll see how they all go. Should be a bit more entertaining on the kickoffs instead of folks just blasting it out the back.
I think since the days of Devin Hester not playing in the NFL, there's not been many great kickoffs. It has tended these days just to be the case that teams just don't even take the risk and they just kick it out and leave out. I mean, also you had the Naeem Hines thing at the Bills, but it's very few and far between these sort of games where that happens. So yeah, looking forward to that and seeing what kind of craziness we'll get with the kickoff returns. But that is where we'll end the podcast for today, our Houston Texans 2024 season preview. So once again, thank you, Graham, for coming on.
No, thanks again. It's always fun chatting with you, Andy.
Absolutely, and we'll get you on, I'm sure, during the season. Of course, we like to get fans on. I like to get fans on of fans of the teams that Dolphins play each week. So I'm sure when it comes to week 15, either previewing the game or reviewing the game, I'll definitely get you on for that, and maybe even before that as well.
Yeah, pleasure. Just give me a shout.
Will do. And for those who haven't yet come across Graham's work before, you can follow him on socials. Graham, how can they find you?
You can find me on Instagram, Kilted_Texan, or on X at the _1_ Hendo, or at UK Texans, or Texans UK, I think it is, on X as well. So yeah, that's where you can find me.
Awesome. If you haven't already, give them a follow, especially if you are a Texans fan, because if you are a Texans fan, it must be great content as a fan. Even as a neutral, it's really good to look at your stuff. But as a Texans fan, it probably is even better to view. So that is the end of our episode. This has been our Houston Texans season preview with myself, your host, Annie Davis, and Graham Henderson. And we'll see you guys for our next team preview. See you then.
Yeah.